Afternoon, fellow safarians, and welcome to the largest game drive vehicle in the world. It is a beautiful afternoon. Like I say, there's a bit of a breeze blowing, but there's not a single cloud in the sky. Now, my name is Tristan. On camera today I've got VM the Wildebeest, and it promises to be a good afternoon with the clear weather like this and nice bright sunshine. Hopefully we'll find a lot of animals coming down to the waterholes to drink, and it should be a busy day ahead. Now remember, it is live, it is interactive, which means that you can get hold of us on #SafariLive on Twitter or on the YouTube channel if you want to ask any questions, or if you just want to say hello from wherever you may be watching. Now, we are going to try and meander our way around waterholes, given that it is quite warm this afternoon. There is a breeze blowing, and the breeze is quite nice when you're in the shade, but when you're like William and I sitting in the sun like we are now, it is quite warm out here. So we're going to check some of the waterholes. Hopefully there will be some sign of some elephants. I've really missed seeing ellies, and I'm hoping that they are going to start meandering their way back, given that it's been quite dry over the last few days and hot, and that hopefully will mean that we're going to get a situation where the ellies are going to come down to the bigger water sources and try and utilize those to cool down, as well as just to gain vital moisture. Failing all of that, of course, as the day gets a little bit later, so our cats should come out, and I know Hosana was found somewhere around Buffelshoek Dam this morning, and he was left going west. Now, west from Buffelshoek Dam is not an easy place to look around, so we are going to try, with Gary being down, I don't know if we're going to get signal, but we will head up into that general vicinity if we can a little bit later and just see, maybe we get lucky and there's some sort of sign of Hosana. Maybe he's come a bit further south where we do have signal, and hopefully we'll be a bit lucky. So that's the kind of plan for the afternoon. Also, won't say no to Janet Jackson, but no, Janet Jackson is not at home. So there's Janet Jackson's home, still evacuated, again maybe on his summer holiday, and is taking it very easy. We haven't seen her since I've been back, or him, like I say. I'm not sure if it's a male or a female, and so I wonder if it's maybe found itself an alternative residence for the summertime. Now, I'm not quite sure what's been happening on Chitwa as well. I want to try and see if we can get hold of somebody and get some updates from that side. I know Tumba and Kuchava have been getting seen every now and then, but I'm not sure whether that's on Chitwa or in Nets or in Koro. I need to just try and find out exactly where they have been seen. So that might head that way. It's also, the dam is always productive in weather like this. It might be a bit breezy, so we'll wait until around sunset if we do go to the dam, because it's generally the wind then calms down, and it's a lot nicer to be able to go and sit at the dam and watch all the hippos and hopefully other animals that are drinking. Now, this afternoon at the moment it's just going to be me, because the Maasai Mara is being pelted once again by a raging torrent of water that is falling from the sky, and therefore their internet is not working. So they will hopefully join us a little bit later as things clear up. I believe Alex the genius is on it and is busy working out how to get them back up and running. So hopefully we will see the Mara team a little bit later, but just for now it's going to be all Sabi sands and all Djuma, which is nothing wrong with that. It's always a wonderful thing just to drive around with you guys and take in all the beauty and sights and sounds that is Djuma at the moment. And actually it's really nice just driving around. It's so beautiful with all this green starting to come through. It feels like there's life starting to come out everywhere, and so it makes for a far more kind of interesting drive than what we've been having over the last few months. As you start to notice little buds of flowers and start to see new birds that you haven't seen for a while. All these kind of things keep you intrigued the whole way along as we go. So hopefully all of you at home will be the same and have the same feeling as we do this. Now, our torchwood is looking as beautiful as ever. It's the tree that kind of, it kept its leaves, but this is one of my favorite torchwoods, and I'll always remember this torchwood because this torchwood is actually, funny enough, in the torchwood, before we get on to my story, you see the Tree Agama on the trunk, so just below where the branches start. It's about, I would say, just towards the top. Okay, so VM's got it. There's a beautiful lizard that we're seeing on the tree, and these guys, we don't see them that often. That's the male Tree Agama, and look at the colors on that individual. So he's got this bright blue head and these yellow and greens that come down from there, and that's to try and signify to the female that he's ready and he can mate and that he's an impressive individual. But how cool is that lizard? It's one of the more brightly colored individuals that we see out here, and I was talking about how as we're starting to go into the summer months, so we start to see a lot more life coming out, and these guys would have been fairly sort of dull and drab and would have had the coloration of bark and would have tried to have blended in through the winter months. Also, because it's cooler, they would have spent a lot of time hidden, so that because they can't move very fast, and that would then make them susceptible to being preyed upon. Now that it's warmer though, their blood can warm up quickly and they can be fairly active, and it's now time to mate demonstrate and display those colors and show those females just how good they look. And look at the coloration around the head. Isn't that magnificent? It's electric blue, and as the sun is shimmering over it through the sort of dappled light, you can see how it reflects that light and just becomes that much more vibrant as the sun hits it. So he's really a striking looking fella, and I'm sure there will be some ladies that will most certainly look for him and be impressed by his beauty. Now Umka and many others that are commenting, it's just how wonderful he is and how beautiful he is, and so just like I was saying, the females are all quite attracted to him. Even us as humans, we think that he looks rather dapper with all of his beautiful coloration. Now, you will find that these Tree Agamas, as the name suggests, spend predominantly all their life around trees. They will come down and they will cross to other trees, but most of their life is spent in these big, tall trees where they can use the crevices and the cracks and little holes in the tree to try and hide away and to try and get out of the way of predators. But you will find them sometimes coming down and scampering around. There is another male that looks like this that I've seen recently quite a bit on quarantine, so there are quite a few of them, and they are dotted around where you've got big trees like this. It's often worthwhile just stopping and looking and really kind of taking in what's going on, and you can often then spot these blue heads kind of poking out somewhere on the tree. If the female's around, she's going to be much harder to spot. She's mottled kind of greys and browns, and she blends in incredibly well with the tree itself, and it will be very difficult to be able to see her. But that's absolutely wonderful. That was a nice surprise. I didn't expect that at all. I was actually commenting on how this torchwood is a tree that I always remember and always reminds me of Shongile. Now, I know a lot of you have been asking about Shongile and where she is and what's going on and what I think could have happened to her. Well, I honestly don't know. I don't know where she is. I don't know if anybody's seen her. There's no new updates on it, and so we'll just have to wait and see how that all plays out. But it was one of the first sightings I ever had of Shongile when I started at Safari Live, was sitting in this tree on one of these big branches. In fact, this big branch that bows to the left, so she was sitting on top there, and we spent the afternoon with her. She kind of gazed upon the scenery, and it was just a wonderful sighting of the little princess. Right, well, we're going to leave our lizard because he's scuttled off into a crevice in the tree, and so we're going to try and check around Twin Dams now and just see if there isn't any sign of something that's been lurking, even some tracks that we can work with. Hopefully there's some Ellie tracks that have been somewhere in this area that we can try and get into those and try and follow them. I also want to just follow the course of the Mulawati, because in warmer weather like this, it's got lots of shady area, which is ideal for a lot of the animals. What's that, Wildy? I thought William said something, but he didn't. Oh, Linda, you were asking about Pooji. We haven't seen Pooji for a while. Well, Pooji's taking it easy. Pooji's at home at the moment, so Pooji's just taking a bit of a rest and not being bounced around. With Byron and I swapping cars every drive almost, it's been difficult to keep Pooji around. I keep forgetting him on different cars, so I've left him at home for a few days, but I promise that I'll bring him tomorrow morning so that he can say hello to all of you. So I'll bring him out on our sunrise safari. Now, what I've spotted from here is also quite nice. It's another indication of summer and spring approaching. So just on a small termite mound here, we have a tiny little plant growing, and there's a bright red coloration just on the edge of the plant. Now, this is a dwarf bourbean, and there is its flowers that are slowly but surely coming out. So it's another little summer sort of sign. And we obviously don't see too many flowers at the moment because it's still early springy summertime, and there's not that many that have gotten enough water to start flowering, but the bourbeans are always the first ones. Now, I don't know if you noticed, there were quite a number of insects there, so what I might do is I might just reposition ourselves quickly so we can get a little bit closer, so we can actually see what beetles and bugs are feeding on the flower itself. Now, I did see some Polyrachus ants there, but let's try and go a little bit closer and actually just check what we've got feeding on. Hopefully they won't run away or fly away as insects do. They don't really run. A lot of them, except for the ants, but that's why we haven't done any. I'm really looking forward to actually getting out on foot over the next little bit to see. So there we go. You can see all of the Polyrachus ants that are on there, and they're all busy feeding off the nectar, and so that's what's there. I thought there might be a couple beetles in here, but it's all just the big dark black ants that we call Polyrachus that are enjoying a bit of nectar and a bit of sweetness, and are really probably loving the fact that they can get quite a bit of sugar out of these beautiful little red flowers. But isn't that pretty? We've had a really wonderful start to our drive. It's maybe not the bigger things, but certainly a lot of beauty in the things that we have seen so far this afternoon, from the Tree Agama with his bright electric blue head to the bright red flowers of the dwarf boerbean. It's all very, very nice. I wonder what else is in store for us today. So, Francis from Israel, you say it's amazing how green it's gotten here so quickly. Well, it is. It's an incredible transformation that happens. And what's interesting is, if you've been watching for a few months, as I know you have been, you will know that we've had a bit of rain outside of this rain that we had recently. But the temperatures were too cold to promote growth. Now that we've got warm temperatures coming through, you can see on my right hand side here there's a lot of green that is coming out of the grass at the moment. There's a few of these white berry bushes that have got leaves on them as well, so it's all getting quite bright and green at the moment. So there we go, there's bright luscious little leaves that have grown. There's also another flower that we've got over here, so there is another little bright purple flower that you see. So it's another one of our summer plants, and that is a poison apple that you're seeing over there. So they do get this little purple flower, and then they'll get an almost apple-like growth that'll come out, and so you see them quite a bit. And you find them generally in quite disturbed areas where there's a lot of foot traffic, and so quarantine we see them a lot. And here around Twin Dams, where there's a lot of movement of elephants and all kinds of other things that disturbs the layer of soil and also is overgrazed quite a bit, then those grow there. But alas, no interesting little birds. I thought maybe now with the flooding of this area down below Twin Dams that we might have seen a lot more birds coming in. My World, Your Music, you're asking if sugar is found in all of the plants. Well, there are sugars in most of them, so a lot of the cells that that make up plants contain sugars. Some of them will be higher in sugar content than others, but most of the cellulose and cells within the actual plant itself will contain some sugars, and so that's why most of these animals will feed off various different flowers. In particular, flowers have nectar, and nectar is a sugary based material, and so a lot of insects and birds. Now what we do have, Willie, if I can ask you just to show, is our little terrapin friends that are swimming in the water themselves. They're being blown about a bit by the wind, so there you go, they're having to deal with a few waves that are coming along, but there is our terrapins, and they're just bobbing about. I'm sure a lot of them would have spent time on the banks today and warmed up, and now it's gotten a little hot for them, so they've gone into the water just to cool off, and as Megan says, doing a little bit of body surfing. Now Megan, did you body surf? Megan's from Cape Town, so in Cape Town they've obviously right on the coastline, and so and so there is an ocean, which means that I'm sure Megan has done some body surfing, and she's now telling me in my ear that she is the best body surfer that there is. Megan, I feel like your leave, which is coming up fairly shortly, you're going to actually have to prove this theory. So what we're going to have to ask Megan to do is, when she goes on leave, is to produce a video of her body surfing. You're going to have to find someone to film it, Megan, and so you can prove the theory, because otherwise it's just a theory and we can't have factless or baseless information out here. Your GoPro's ready, do you? Okay. Which will be into the Mara, so I'll have to tell Tayla and the rest to be able to get hold of that footage and show all of us just how good Megan is at body surfing. Megan, you're going to have some competition. I'm pretty sure Scott would probably get involved in that competition. Who else is into the ocean and all of those kind of things? Well, Brent, we know, will never ever back down from a challenge, and neither will Tayla, so I'm pretty sure that they would get involved in the body surfing challenge too. Now, I saw something running over there. I want to just check with my binos what it was. It might have been like a little diker or something like that. That's what it seemed like. I can't see anything. Viam, can you see anything? Did you see what it was, Viam? Yeah. No, Viam didn't see either, but there was definitely something that ran. Let's go and take a little turn past there and just double check. I think it's going to be better if we just go back a little bit. B. Wilson, you're asking, is it too early for bees? No, so we do have bees around already. I've seen, where did I see bees the other day? I definitely saw bees somewhere, and I can't remember for the life of me where it was. I can't remember if it was at Inga's or if it was at DRC. There was quite a few of them around. I don't know, my brain's failing me at the moment, but I remember seeing bees somewhere, and so yes, they are around. They'll be fairly active now that their flowers are starting to come out and producing pollen, so we're going to see a situation where a lot of the bees are going to come out and start feeding off them. So yes, there are bees around. I wonder what ran here. I'm sure I saw an animal. I can't see anything now. Was it a monkey, Vildy? So VM can see a monkey that is apparently hiding from us. So there's a Vervet Monkey, there it is, just behind. So I'm not completely crazy, but it's strange to see a young monkey. That's not a very old monkey. It's, you can see, still got quite a young face, and it's not very big, hiding away by itself. I would have thought that we would have seen other monkeys somewhere in this general vicinity, because generally Vervets are not loners. They are sociable group animals. And so it's quite strange to see one lone youngish monkey by itself. Maybe the rest of them are somewhere in these jackalberries feeding off the jackalberry fruit, although there won't be too many jackalberry fruits left now. Most of those probably would have been dropped and actually fed off. So we're going to leave our little Vervet because he's obviously a little bit scared of our presence, and I don't want to get between it and its family and stress it out. So we're going to let it just try and find whoever it's looking for and regroup with everybody. Alan, I have not actually tasted wild honey from the reserve. It's not something that is harvested out here. So remember that in this particular section, we have a situation where in this reserve is that we try and leave things as much as possible. Now, harvesting honey from a hive is quite invasive and quite damaging. It's almost like us going into a hyena den and breaking half of it open just to try and see what's going on inside there. So we try and leave the bees to themselves. They've got enough problems to deal with in the world at the moment. So many different bees that are being pushed out and killed, and their numbers are really plummeting. So for us to go and harvest honey from bees that are out here in the wild is not really that ethical and not something that we should be doing. The thing is, though, is that there are areas outside of the reserves that do have bees that will travel probably between the reserves and where they are based, and will feed off a lot of the local indigenous vegetation, particularly acacias. So acacia honey is quite a big thing in South Africa. You do find a lot of beekeepers will plant acacias nearby their hives, and so that those bees can feed off the nectar of the acacia flowers. So you do find acacia honey, and I have tried that. I'm not a huge honey fan, to be honest, but I know that a lot of the other guys do like the acacia honey, so apparently it is very, very tasty. Now, the reason why I've stopped here is because from this distance is probably the best angle that I can get on the Wahlberg's eagle nest, and I can see that there's a Wahlberg's eagle's head poking out. So it's that tree over there, Vildy. Yeah. So I think there's a Wahlberg's eagle sitting on top there. So there we go. You can just see the white head of the pale form Wahlberg's as it sits and probably is incubating its eggs. Now, I'd imagine that these Wahlberg's have already bred. The fact that this bird is sitting on a nest in this heat would indicate that there are eggs present there and she's already laid. So it's going to be nice just to monitor that nest. It is a nest that we see very regularly, and so really good to see that the pale form is back on this nest and is actually finished, because the last time I saw her, which was about, I would say about 2 weeks ago, she was still building, or he was still building. They were adding sticks to it, so they must have laid now and are actually incubating eggs. Although I would imagine in sun like this, she's more actually just protecting them from the vicious sun and making sure that they're actually not being cooked rather than actually trying to keep them warm. Right, let's see what else there is out here. It's a productive little section, this. It's been nice to drive around Twin Dams. While there's been no major animals, there's lots of birds and insects and lots to talk about, really, which is quite nice. Hopefully the rest of our drive will continue to go like this. We'll be able to find lots of different things. Love mine, the butterflies are starting slowly but surely to appear. I think we need a little bit more rain before we start to see more of them, but yes, they are starting to appear. So I've seen quite a few monarchs recently, African monarchs. There's a lot of pearl emperors, or Charaxes varnes is their scientific name, which is a beautiful white butterfly with brown wing edgings to it. So there's been quite a few of them that I've seen flying around, but there's been one or two common vagrants, but I haven't seen any brown veined whites yet. I haven't seen any of the little common blues or any of those, or crias. So I think they will come a little bit later when we start to get a bit more rain. We just need a little bit more vegetation and for the grass to grow and start to seed and produce that gummy sap and flowers to come out a little bit more than what we're seeing now, and then hopefully we'll start to see a lot more butterflies coming out. I know Brent is absolutely besotted with butterflies, and I really like them too. I love trying to ID different butterflies and look for them. I'm not that good at it, and I don't know all the butterflies, but I certainly have learnt a lot over the last few years, and have done a lot to try and actually learn about butterflies. Now there's some leopard tracks here, and I want to just find out from VM if these leopard tracks are from this morning, because this looks like a female leopard that's crossed here during the day, because it's on top of all the vehicle tracks. VM, did you drive here this morning? So if you have a look there, very clear as day in the tracks of the vehicles is some leopard paw prints, and that is for a female leopard, and I would imagine this must be for Tandy. So what I want to do is just check the Mulawati, because this is going straight into the Mulawati. It's a route that she walks regularly, and so I do want to just check this and make 100% sure. But that's exciting news. These tracks look really nice. I like the look of these tracks. They don't look too windswept, nice and smooth, so hopefully we'll be able to find this individual. I see she turned up the road here as well. Now I wonder if somebody didn't track these. I want to double check. There's tracks going back and forth here. I think maybe the Mulawati is not a bad place actually just to have a double check. She might be lying in the shade somewhere here. There's also, from where we are now, if she crossed over and went straight across, there's a little water hole there that's not often checked by anybody. It's not really a road that goes there, so I might just go and check that water hole, just check if she's not lying somewhere close to that. In a hot weather like this, you would expect our leopards to head towards watery areas, so I'm going to just double check there. But those tracks look really good and really fresh, so hopefully there is a spotted cat lurking somewhere close by here. It would explain why we haven't seen any signs of antelope species. Rita, you want to know how I can tell that it's a female leopard? Well, there's a number of reasons. One is just the sheer size of it. So when you have a leopard track, a male leopard will have a much bigger, bulkier track. A female tends to have a very small, slender, narrow track. Her front foot is a little bit more rounded, and her back foot will be very oval in shape, whereas a male's, his tend to be almost perfect circular shape. So if you had to draw a circle around it, it would be a perfect circle, whereas the females generally have a little bit more of an oval shape to theirs. The other thing is with a male leopard track is where the back two lobes are. So if you've got 1, 2, 3 lobes at the back, these back 2 lobes on a male are very rounded. They almost form a shape like that, whereas a female's back lobe, if I use my finger, has a more kind of, that's probably not a good way to do it, let's use 2 fingers, has that kind of shape to the back of the track. It's more angular, and so that's how we can tell the difference between the females and the males. And then again, just size is a big thing. All right, so the young males that we have in this area at the moment, the Hosanas, Tumbers, they already have feet much bigger than a female and much more bulky than what a female is. So I'm pretty sure that that's a track for either Tandy or Shadow. Given where it is on Twin Dams Road, I'm almost 99% sure that that's Tandy's tracks crossing over there. Now the reason why I stopped here was also because of a lilac-breasted roller, which I see I've chased off when my mic pack fell out of my vehicle and hit the side of the car, so unfortunately that's disappeared. But let me just double check down towards the Mulawati drainage system. I know Tandy absolutely loves walking around in here. She's tough to find a lot of the time because she rests in thickets and is very seldom right out in the open, but maybe, just maybe, she's lurking in some of the shade somewhere around here and we'll be able to spot her underneath all of this. Of course, because it's just me at the moment, I can't really do too much tracking, so I can't get off the car and try and kind of look around for tracks. The best I can do is just try and drive and look very carefully as I'm driving to try and spot them in the tracks of the cars or in the Mulawati, or actually just physically spot Tandy lying somewhere, or whichever leopard it is that is around here. but I don't see any tracks crossing over this section, so I'm going to go and check that waterhole that I was talking about just now. It's just a small little puddle basically, but it's the perfect place for a leopard to drink. We know that leopards ideally like to drink out of smaller water sources than larger ones. If they can avoid drinking out of somewhere like twin dams, they would prefer to drink out of these more isolated, smaller pockets of water, because it's a lot safer for them. There's not a threat of crocodiles and various other things, so it's going to be worth just checking and double checking here. I mean, we've got nothing to lose. We might get lucky and find her there, or we don't get any luck and there's, well, nothing around, and it'll just be pretty to go and drive there. It's somewhere we don't drive very often. And so I'm also just checking the road as I go. So the important thing when trying to track from a vehicle as opposed to being on foot you can follow track for track. On a vehicle you're going to lose the track a lot of the time, because they're going to veer off the road and they're going to cut through places that you would generally just follow on foot. So with a vehicle, it's always important to just try and pull off the road and drive more on the shoulder of the road. And no, those birds have flown away. There were some southern black tits above me that flew away. And so it's better to try middle and the left and watch this right track and try and see if you can find a footprint crossing or walking down the road. And that's the easiest way to be able to look for footprints when driving a vehicle. Also, what you try and do is, from the position that we're in now, is you've got to try and look at the tread pattern of a vehicle and kind of get that tread pattern, and then try and see if there's any breaks in that tread pattern, and that will then indicate, okay, there's some disturbance there, and then you stop next to it and you can look really closely and maybe you'll find that track then going through that area. I didn't do it. You're asking, when I'm out and about tracking, have I had an animal startle me? Oh, many times. Far too many times to actually remember all of them. But I've had lion startle me, leopard startle me, buffalo, elephant, rhino, warthogs. And you'll laugh at me because I say warthogs and I group them in with all of these big nasty animals that we know are very dangerous. But warthogs have probably given me more frights than most other animals, because often you'll come around a corner and all of a sudden there'll be a warthog and it'll just run for its life, because it's also absolutely petrified of you, and it ends up running in a direction and you kind of just get, your heart goes at 1,000,000 miles an hour because you're now following tracks for some dangerous animal, whether it be lion or leopard or whatever it is that you're following, and all of a sudden there's this burst and this noise, and or you see something running and your brain is a little slow to kind of comprehend exactly what's going on. So I've been given frights by them many times, many francolins, funny enough, because they come squawking out and busting out towards you, and it's just flapping of feathers and noise, which is not very pleasant. But yeah, pretty much all the animals have given me some sort of a fright at some point, and the thing is just to remain composed and to remain sort of aware of what's going on around you, and to try and not get a fright and panic. It's rather just to assess what's going on as quick as you can and sort it out from there. And so that's why it's good to go on walks with experienced people a number of times to be able to then learn how to deal with certain situations. Now, this is the little water point that I was talking about a little bit earlier. It's a nice little secluded, hidden kind of muddy wallow, and the perfect place for a number of our cats to come and drink. You can see it's slightly bigger than a lot of the other puddles. There's actually a number of red-billed quellias that are up here at the moment, just on the top right of that tree. You can see there, they're all, is it red-billed quellias? Or yes, red-billed quellias. So they've all come down for a bit of a drink, and because it's a quiet pan and not too much goes on here, you'll often find a lot of different birds and lizards and butterflies and those kind of things, as well as leopard. I've found a number of leopard tracks here on bushwalks over the time that I've been here, and when I've been tracking, I've walked past here a few times and found that a number of our cats actually do like to come into this area. So it's a wonderful place just to come and check and have a look. And Herbie actually showed me this. Once I was tracking Hosana, and he told me that this is a place that I must always come and check, because if the animals aren't at twin dams, this is the next place that they come to drink, particularly in the summer months. So it's worthwhile to check here. I can see that there's nothing really lying under the shade, and so we're probably going to turn around and go back towards the Mulawati and follow the Mulawati up to Chelapan and check that water point. If there's nothing there with those tracks, well, then I'm going to try and see what else there is. I also want to try and get an update just on the radio, because I haven't actually, oh sorry, little red-billed quellias, I have just unfortunately just given my red-billed quellias a massive fright. Right, well, I'm going to just turn around and start heading back towards Mulawati, as I said, and I'm going to try and get an update on the radio. And while I do that, just to give us a little break, we're going to go back to, well, probably one of the best sightings I've had in a long time, and that was of our 3 male leopards making friends. What you're seeing here is just absolutely insane. To have 3 males like this together is almost unheard of, and the fact that Tingana is so relaxed with them, Hosana doesn't seem too perturbed, Tamba up in the tree is not too worried. I've never seen 3 leopards in close proximity like this, feeding off carcasses with a big male being the one that allows them to feed. It really is a very, very strange dynamic, this, and not something we're going to see every day. You can see Tumba's just having a field day. I think he's got the best spot out of all of them at the moment. Maybe Tingana is just a bit perplexed that his 2 offspring from different parents are sitting in the same area and everything is a bit weird for him. Maybe that's why he's a bit concerned, or I don't know. It's just such a strange thing. There is a scavenger as well that is slowly making its way towards where Tingana is. So there you can see the hyenas have arrived. There's 2 of them as well as the 3 leopards, so it's all going a bit chaotic. Now that hyena is going straight to where Hosana had his leg. There we go. And Hosana wouldn't have been able to crunch that down, but a hyena most definitely can. And there goes a hyena trotting off with its prize in the form of a carcass, or in form of a leg. Now you see, look how he's crouching down, waiting for the hyena to go past. Once hyena's gone past, he pops back up again. Exactly the same behavior that Tingana displayed. How cool is this? Like I say, so we didn't have leopards for a few days, but we're more than making up for it now by having a whole bunch of them all together. Now, wasn't that a wonderful sighting? It's so crazy to think that those 3 boys are always so tolerant of each other, particularly around food. It absolutely amazes me at how Tingana's behavior was there. He often gets this bad reputation of being this horrible leopard that, he killed Shaluva and that he's chased other leopards and he steals, and everybody kind of vilifies Tingana a lot of the time. And you can see there that actually he was probably the most relaxed of all 3 of them. Now, right at the end of the sighting, I thought he was actually chasing Tamba away when Tamba came down the tree and he was trotting after them, but that's not actually what happened. Later I managed to speak to some of the other guides who were positioned a little bit differently to what we were, and what they told me was that when Tamba came down the tree, it was actually Hosana that came running after Tamba. Now the commotion of the 2 of them running behind each other is what triggered Tingana to go trotting behind them, and when we saw a visual of Tingana chasing behind Tamba, well, what I thought was Tamba was actually Hosana that he was behind. And then he sent marks and he just kind of showed the boys, listen, you guys can have your little sort of altercation, but this ultimately is my area, and so all of you just back off. This is where I stay and where I live. So it was really quite amazing. I really didn't expect that from Tingana. I would have thought Tingana would have been a lot more aggressive towards those 2, particularly with food. Had there not been food, maybe a little bit of a different situation, and I would have been a little bit more kind of aware that he might have been okay with them. But the fact that the boys were eating and he wasn't perturbed was just absolutely unbelievable, and one of those once in a lifetime kind of sightings. It's not very often that you're going to get to see something like that. I certainly don't think I will probably see all 3 males in a sighting as relaxed as that again in my time. So, well, you never know, maybe I will, but it's a very special thing. It's certainly a first for me to see such relaxed behavior from a dominant male leopard carcass with other leopards in the area. Now, unfortunately, I can't really drive the Mulawati because the reception in the Mulawati is going to go up and down and cut and go all over the place, and so while we don't have the Mara with us, I'm going to have to keep the Mulawati for a little bit later, and I know the tracks do head off into the Mulawati, but we're going to just have to try and hope that this leopard decided just to lie on somewhere where I can actually see from here, and hopefully it's not deep inside where we're going to lose reception. So I do apologize, and if you're wondering why I'm not continuing with it, trying to track those tracks, there's not really much more I can do until the Mara comes back online, and hopefully they will come back online at some point. Otherwise, well, it is what it is, and we'll just drive around this area and hope for the best, and maybe later in the day this particular individual does start moving. And what I want to do quickly now is just go and check pangolin tracks, waterhole, check Chelapan, and then I'm going to come down to Spaghetti Junction and start heading northwards towards where Hosana was this morning, try and see if maybe he's been walking around a little bit as well, and also just keep an eye out for Tandy or any of the others. Ilana, who's 14 years old and is asking a question well beyond her years, and it's a very, very pertinent question and a very good question to ask. And Ilana wants to know, basically, with so many of the leopards here around Djuma being Karula's offspring, or at least related to Karula in some way, is that not going to cause a problem genetically with our leopards here because of how many of them are related? Well, Ilana, no, probably not. And the reason why I say that is because Tingana is a male from a different area altogether. He is not a individual that was born into the Karula bloodline and genetics, and so therefore he's got a very sort of different genetic code that's being mixed in with Karula that's produced these offspring. Now, if, let's say, hypothetically, Shongile had to stay and Tingana mated with her, yes, it's not ideal, and yes, it's probably not something that we really want, and it's not really how nature works, but it would take a number of mating periods and a number of offspring to keep inbreeding for there to be an actual problem genetically. It's normally 3 to 4 generations of inbreeding that will then make something happen and genetic problems to arise. Once in a while is not going to be an issue, and the fact of the matter is that our young boys, Tamba, Hosana, theoretically should, in all likelihood, push off and end up somewhere else. I don't think that they're going to have a situation where they're going to be dominant that much around here and mate with their aunts or their mothers or anything like that. I think it's more likely that they're going to end up somewhere else. So I think for now, quite closely related, should be still viable in terms of their genetic DNA and still be okay. But only time will tell as to whether or not it's an issue. I know it has happened in many other reserves where males and females that are related have bred, and it takes a number of breeding times for it to actually negatively influence those individuals. Right, so nothing that is at this pan, which is why I wanted to come here, is just to check in case something was lying here. We know Hosana has been really favoring this pan the last few days. He's been here quite often, but there seems to be a lack of anybody actually around here. No antelope species, no leopard. I'm just checking in all the shady spots, because if there is a cat around, it's going to be in the shady, cool areas, not lying out in the sun. So I was hoping though that there would be some indication, but there's not even any tracks coming this way. So we're going to go back towards Spaghetti Junction now and just check around the Mulati area there. So David, I think I got that. Sorry, there was another person that spoke quite loudly on the radio at the same time, but I believe you're asking what is my most memorable leopard sightings of this year. That's tough. I've been really spoiled, to be honest. I've had such a wonderful year at Djuma with leopards. I've been so fortunate to have seen some of the most crazy sightings. I've really had a lot of luck, and so my best. I would have to say that the top 3 for me have been those 3 leopards that we saw just now, the males all together. The fact that there was also a male lion and 2 hyenas also didn't detract from that sighting whatsoever. So VM has spotted something. Oh, there we go, a little Steenbok. So while we gaze upon the beauty of the Steenbok, I'll carry on with the other sightings that I have really enjoyed. That one, there's been the Tandy Shongile Hosana altercation that we had as well, which was a sad one in some ways, but also an incredible one, and it's, I suppose, a bit bittersweet now because we haven't seen Shongile since that day. So it's, in a way, it was just such an amazing thing to witness, but since we haven't seen her, it's kind of become a little bit more of a sore point than it has been an amazing one, but it was still incredible behavior. And then the other one was, I would say, the Tamba Hosana sort of no, it's not really a fight, but a meeting up and interaction at Twin Dams. That was just also absolutely phenomenal. And the last one, which has also been a multiple leopard sighting, was the Tandy Shongile Mvula sighting, where Mvula stole Shongile's kill and was feeding up on a tree, and we had Shongile down below, and then that other leopard came in, and we think it was Tandy. We didn't get a proper view of her to make 100% sure, but that was just such an amazing sighting as well, because it was just, things were just coming left, right and center. And so it's all been interaction amongst them more than anything else. I actually haven't had too many leopard sightings where there's been other animals that have caused any problems, but the interaction between the different leopards that we've had here on Djuma, and because of Kruger's disappearance, these newer members coming in and interacting with some of our sort of more well-known members have been really fascinating to watch, and to see how they've kind of been sorting themselves out, and also just to watch the young boys, how they've kind of latched onto so many different leopards over the last few months has been absolutely wonderful. But our Steenbok has moved away, so I'm going to carry on as well. Now, I was talking about the Tumba Hosana Twin Dams incident, and I believe Megan, so nice of her, has prepared a clip of them and is going to be able to show us. So while I kind of meander my way towards Spaghetti Crossing, let's have a little look at the two boys and their little interaction. Now, unfortunately, our clip didn't play properly, so you're back with us, but we have got a whole host of Steenbok together here. It looks as though there's at least 3 that I can see. So as I was driving off, we spotted another 2 of them. There's a young male. You can see small horns, and there's almost looks like another male that's almost chasing him, and now lying down, and that lying down behavior is very submissive. There's also another Steenbok that I can see, so there's actually 4 here in total. So I wonder if it's not 2 pairs, a younger pair and an older pair coming together. But look, that Steenbok lay down in almost a submissive behavior. It lay down, pushed its heads down, and basically to say, I'm not challenging you, don't fight with me, because the other one dropped its head, and there we go, now it's running off. Amazing. There goes the other 2 after it. So I don't quite know what's going on. I'm going to try and go back a little bit and just see. The behavior of these smaller antelope is so misunderstood because we just don't get to spend enough time with them, and they generally are so flighty and so skittish that we very seldom actually see interactions between other individuals. But how cool is this? I can honestly say it's the first time that I've seen a Steenbok display almost leopard-like behavior, and that it was just going down and kind of being submissive to the others, and they still trotting off after one another and going deeper into the bush. So I think there comes the 3rd one now out of there, or 4th one. That's the 4th individual that's now crossing. You can see that's got small little horns and still quite fluffy. So that's a fairly young one. I wonder if maybe they aren't pushing this young one away. Maybe it's more a situation of that, where they've decided, hang on a second, you are reaching the age and the size where you need to go. We've also bred, because it's now summer months and Steenbok will be giving birth shortly, and so maybe they've decided, listen, your time is up, you need to now go and find somewhere else to go and settle. Interesting nonetheless, and certainly very cool to see. Glad that we got that on camera, actually. Well done, Vildi. It's all thanks to Vildi. He spotted all of those Steenbok as we were driving along. Now, in terms of the radio though, if anybody wanted to know about updates and things like that, no updates yet of anything really. And so I think that we'll check, like I say, Spaghetti Junction. If there's nothing there, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go. I'll maybe start heading up Vulture's Nest just in case, or Nyala Road South, just in case Hosana's somewhere there. But it's playing a dangerous game because, like I say, the signal is not so good up that way, and so I don't want to lose signal and we go to Tech Loop. I'd rather be kind of out and about, and we'll try our very best to see if we can push it as much as we can before we head into an area where there is a little signal. Enchanted music. You want to know how we can tell which leopard is which? Well, I'm going to show you now how we do it. I just want to get into a shady spot so I don't cook VM's brain and my brain, and don't dehydrate from being in the sun too much. So we're just going to quickly get around to a shadier section, and then I'll show you exactly how we basically tell them apart. There's a number of different ways, and everybody seems to have their own kind of exact take on it. The most common way though is to basically use spot patterns, and now spot patterns generally refer to the whisker patterns that we get. So I'll show you right now what I'm talking about. So if I get my phone, I'll try and get the spot patterns that I can show you what exactly I mean. But effectively we have spot patterns around the whisker area, and the whisker area gives us a good idea of exactly what we're talking about. So if you have a look here, there, those whisker patterns that we can see on Kuchava. So these are her whiskers, and then just above you see 1, 2, 3 dots, and then 1, to 3. So you'll often hear people say that a leopard is a 3-3 individual, or a 2-3, or a 4-3, and that's referring to those spots, and those are unique on every single leopard. No two leopards will have the exact same spot pattern over the whisker. It's almost like a fingerprint. Then the other place that we use for basically doing IDs is these bars and spots above the eyes, around the edges of the eyes, and also across the forehead. You know, with Karula we used to use wow across the forehead, but there will be these markings also very unique. And then certain leopards will have random little markings on them that will be able to tell them apart. So Tingana's got a smiley face on his shoulder, Hosana's got a little marking on his tail region, and all of those things will help with being able to ID them. So that's how we do it. Also, then after you see them a number of times, you start to recognize them as individuals, and certain little features, like for me, Tumba's got those light eyes, dark markings. I just know him straight away with a little pink nose, whereas Hosana's got the nick out of his left ear, and he's got that sort of darker orange eyes and a little bit more of a dark sort of barring across his nose, so to speak. Now there's our red-billed hornbill that's just joining in the conversation. Has decided that since we're talking about spots, it would show its spots of its own. Hornbills have quite nice spotty little wing patterns, a big red beak, and they are quite beautiful birds, aren't they? Not the cleverest, do entertain me though. I watch the hornbills at camp very, very much, and well, very much is not very good English actually. I'm speaking too much, that's why. I watch them a lot, and they do entertain me thoroughly. They'll sit and they'll pick at the windows, and they go after themselves and each other, and it's just all a big game to them. And the reason why I say they're not very bright is because I watched a red-billed hornbill like this one the other day, and it was about 20 minutes that it sat pecking at a window at its own reflection. It literally was just pecking the reflection over and over again, to the point where I'm sure that bird must have had a mild concussion and was probably not able to fly too much. Maybe that's why it sat there for as long as it did afterwards, because then it sat there for a while without pecking before it eventually flew away. But they seem to really be a sucker for punishment, so to speak, of themselves. Right. Come on, Mulawati, show us what you've got. There must be a leopard somewhere here. It's the right conditions for a Mulawati leopard. It's hot, it's bright and sunny, which means that hopefully there should be an individual in the shade somewhere around here. Let's just check if there's any tracks. So no tracks that I can see. I always scan this area very carefully, because since that time when Tumba spent so much time here, it was a place where it was really good just to look around. There's lots of little shady sort of areas and places where a leopard could sit, and Tumba spent so much time here and we drove past him so many different times, that it's worth going a little slower through this section and looking very carefully and just watching and making 100% sure before you move on. So that's why I'm just checking and looking for tracks as well. What we'll do is probably do Nyala Road South now. Check the mud wallows off Nyala Road South, see if there isn't some sign there. Still no tracks for elephants though. I was surprised. With this hot weather, it's normally elephant weather. You normally find lots of ellies out in this weather, but I don't know. It seems as though our elephant friends have found themselves somewhere else to spend the summer so far. They haven't really come into our area much at all. Still no tracks that I can see of anything. I wonder if this female track that we saw earlier is not somewhere back in the Mulawati, and that we've just kind of driven past her by not going into the Mulawati itself. I'll have to, maybe we'll try go back around there. It might take Central, go Mamba, and then go Batalia and then Mamba, and just double check those areas and just see if maybe she's not walked on one of those roads as well. I think Byron did tell me that he had tracks for a female this morning. Right, now I believe Megan has found a sighting that, well, she says is one of her favourites, and it was of good old Hosana having a little stalk at Twin Dams. Well, apparently not. Apparently it's still not downloading properly, so it seems as though the gremlins have interrupted those clips too, which means, well, it's still me, and still me chatting away. Right, I thought there was a grey go-away bird that alarm called, and that's also why I was just quickly looking at that pan and just trying to check if there wasn't something lying there, but alas, nothing obvious that I could see. We'll check also, there's another little pan just up ahead here on the left hand side. That's also not a bad one to have a look for. If anything, it's not a great place for during the day because there's not really much shade, but it's a good track trap, so to speak. So if any leopard did come here, which it looks like little pug marks on the road somewhere here. Right, now we're going to try that again with Hosana's little stalk at Twin Dams while I grab a little sip of water, and so let's see if it'll actually play this time. But look at him, look at how low to the ground. Look at that! Isn't that incredible? He's doing the leopard crawl. It is my favorite thing to see from a leopard, is when they crawl like that, and he is in the best possible light that we could ask for. How cool is this? Look, he's just checking over the dam wall. Well done, Hosana. You are slowly but surely working things out, that's for sure. But look at this, he's crawling straight towards us. That is beyond epic. Now the impala is coming straight towards him, but it's going to see him. He's right out in the open. Is that not ridiculous, guys? How cool is that? That is as cool as it gets when it comes to seeing the two of them. Now I wonder if he's going to explode out from there. The impalas haven't seen him yet. If they look to the left, they're going to spot him, surely. He's right out in the open. Nope, that impala hasn't seen him. He's waiting for the smallest one, which is going to come over now. It's the youngest of the impalas, is a much smaller individual that is right at the back, and that's going to be the one that I think he might have a go at. But look at that. Amazing. Look, the impala's walking closer. So wants to investigate what's going on. Hosana's lying flat. Look at that. Oh, there we go. You see, they've seen him now. They think it's a leopard. They're not 100% sure, but he's lost that advantage now. Isn't that also an incredible sighting? It was amazing, that period that we went through with Hosana around all the dams stalking, and he was so close. If it wasn't for that last impala that spotted him, as well, I suppose it was actually the third last impala that spotted him and saw him, the little one right at the back I think would have been in trouble, and I think we would have seen Hosana grab that little one, because there was a smaller one right at the tail end, and had the others gone over that dam wall, I don't think that little one would have had a chance. I think Hosana was waiting for that small one. But it was an amazing thing to watch. I just loved the fact that he leopard crawled and he was down on his tummy. It was just the coolest thing to see. I love when leopards do that, and to see him out in the open doing it was just that much more special. It also goes to show how difficult it is to see a leopard, even with a male lying out in the open like that, of a blade of grass covering him. 3 impalas still walked past him before the one noticed him, which is, to me, just shows how well they camouflage and why they're successful as predators. When they get into thickets, you can imagine how difficult it must be to be able to actually see that animal and to pick him up and to actually then avoid him. So it's a testament to not only the amazing ability of a leopard to blend, but also the incredible eyesight and senses that the prey animals have to avoid leopards in these thickets, and not just on the roads and open sections like they had to deal with there. It would have been cool to have seen him kill an impala, though. I don't think we've had any sign of, well, we haven't had an actual sort of sighting of Hosana grabbing a big carcass yet. We've seen him feeding on big carcasses, but we haven't actually seen him grabbing one for himself. So it would be nice to see, and just see how he goes about it, and whether or not he sort of struggles, or if it comes quite naturally, or how it actually all works. But maybe one day. Also, it's a complete sort of, what's the word now, I suppose a bogey sighting for me. It's a sighting that, if you can believe, on all the time that I've spent with a leopard and with leopards over the years, that I'm still yet to see a leopard take a adult impala, which sounds really odd, and it's a bane of my existence, because I've spent probably more hours than a lot of people with leopards, and I've yet to see them grab a fully grown impala. I've seen them grab all kinds of other things and chase after fully grown impalas, but never a successful fully grown impala hunt. It's all been babies, and that's it. So I'm really hoping at some stage to break the drought. You'll probably find when it does happen, I'll end up seeing 5 or 6 of them in the space of a short period of time. It's normally like that when you struggle to find something, and when eventually you do see it, it's kind of commonplace. So I'm just checking around this area. Also, I forgot to mention the other day that I know some of you have been asking about the migratory birds and which ones have been arriving and carrying and sort of wondering which ones are next. I actually saw a violet-backed starling the other day, so it's the first one that I've seen of the summer. I don't know if Byron's maybe seen one on his drives, but there was one male violet-backed starling that was on one of the trees, and I was hoping to get it on camera, and as we swung the camera it ended up flying away. So it's a really special one to see as well, and they bring a lot of color to this area. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm going to try and find you a picture now. I just didn't want to stop down below, and while I actually try and find the picture, there's some little dwarf mongoose that are running around on my left hand side here on the mound itself. They're close to where they would probably spend their time trying to hide out from predators, and so they're feeding in the afternoon sun and kind of going around, and as soon as there's some sort of a disturbance, they run up onto that termite mound like what you just saw now, and then they go into those holes in order to get away from predators. But I really like dwarf mongoose. They're funny little creatures. They're all over the place, never sitting still, always bouncing around all over the show. So they are a real enjoyment and entertaining animal to watch going around. Now I'm just trying to find the violet-backed starling. So here it is here. It is got to be one of the most incredible colorations that I've seen on a bird. Look at the color of that. That is iridescent violet that comes off the back of this bird with bright white plumage on the chest. It is absolutely phenomenally beautiful. Right, so there we go. That female leopard has just been found now, right where we had the tracks, and in the Mulawati. If we had just driven there, we would have found her. So I'm going to try and get there, and so we can hopefully get reception. It's quite frustrating because we would have found that leopard had we just driven in the Mulawati. I told Rex, I've got those tracks, they're very fresh, please check the Mulawati. I can't go in there yet. And he said he drove in there, and not even 20 meters he found the leopard. So he's very happy, and he's telling me that I must come as quickly as I can. But how amazing is that? So there we go. At Tandy, I'm sure it's Tandy that is there. Super exciting and super glad that we managed to get somebody onto those tracks to help us out, because now I can go there and hopefully we'll get some sort of reception. At least we can at least try get a little bit of a reception in that area. But I just want to get hold of him on the radio, so I do apologize. Rex, you copy? Just confirm you found that leopard there by the big jackalberry. Copy, thanks Rex. So apparently what's happened is she's gone where we checked at that little water hole and crossed the Mulawati. Her tracks were on top of our tracks there when Rexon went down, and he just found her lying right there. So we were 10 minutes too early, or if we had just driven the Mulawati we would have found her. But exciting news nonetheless. It also sounds like she's in a place where we might have reception, because she's on the bank of the Mulawati, not right down in the riverbed now. She's moved up and onto the bank itself where our vehicle was, where we had reception just now. So that's really good news, and it means that hopefully we will be able to see her, which is really exciting. And well, I'll be super happy to spend the afternoon with one of our females. I don't know who it is just yet. I presume it's Tandy, because like I say, the track size and where she is, but who knows, maybe because we're talking about Shongile, we can throw that into the breeze, and maybe, just maybe, you never know. I don't know. And I believe a lot of you are excited about the prospects of leopard. I would imagine that some of you are, and whether it's Shongile or Tandy, many of you are fans of either one. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of happy campers, including these two gentlemen in this vehicle, that are going to be very happy to spend the afternoon with the leopard. I know VM loves our spotted friends, and well, so do I, as we all know, and so I'm certainly going to be smiling and grinning like a Cheshire cat if we get to spend the afternoon with Tandy. She's one of my favorite females. In fact, she is the favorite female that I've seen in the Sabi sands over the years. I know she's can be a bit grumpy and she can be aggressive, and I know she fought the Shongile, but it's all instinct and natural, and I find her incredibly interesting and to watch, and to see how she's moved around and how her fluid her territory has been over the years has been fascinating to watch. So she really is an interesting cat, and she is beautiful as well. So hopefully it will be either her or Shongile. I would love to catch up with Shongile again, just to put to bed a lot of rumors. I saw a funny rumor the other day. Oh, VM, look, there's a kudu. VM, have you seen a kudu in 2 weeks? So VM says it's his first kudu since he's been back, and it's my first kudu since I've been back from leave as well. Now I know we are going to a leopard, but we'll stop and just admire our kudu because it's been so long since we've seen them, either of us. I wonder where they've been. They've seemed to have been absolutely vacant the last few weeks, and maybe they've been a bit further south where there was a bit more rains, and now they're going to start coming back into this area. But definitely a sight for sore eyes. They're an animal that, while they are common and we see them a lot, it's still great to see kudu, and still great to see them roaming around. They're beautiful animals, they're big ears, and it would be really nice, you know, to have them around and to see them, particularly the big males. I love the males with their big curly horns. And Megan was saying, I think Byron was mentioning it, or Megan was mentioning it to Byron this morning, that we haven't seen them in quite some time. So nice to see. They also, the reason why I like having kudu is that they're generally in areas on crests like where we are now, and this is areas that a lot of the time we don't drive, and these guys often spot predators for us, and their alarm call is so loud and so deep that you hear it from far away, and they often give away the presence of a lot of our predators in places that typically we wouldn't actually be driving. So good to see them again. They're a vital component of our system, and like I say, they are just absolutely beautiful animals. There we go, crossing the road. I think there's one more that's going to come over and head, and then once that one crosses, we're going to continue on our journey towards the leopard. But worth taking a moment just to enjoy the beauty of the kudu. Tom, you say you love saying the word kudu. I know it is quite fun, isn't it? It's a weird word and not something you would ever think of saying, but I suppose if you in a situation where you kind of think of the word and the sound that they make, it's very an appropriate name to have given them. There's interestingly a track for another leopard over there. Not very fresh, but there is a track. Now, I was saying just now that there are rumors about Shongile being sold to a zoo, and it's the normal kind of story when we have a leopard that's not seen for a while, where they hunted and they sold and all the other nonsense that comes out of this stuff that is just complete drivel and completely baseless information. There is no such thing as leopards from the Sabi Sands being sold to zoos in any shape or form. It doesn't happen. It's illegal. It's not possible. We will not see it happening in the Sabi Sands. It is controlled. They do not allow our leopards to be sold, hunted, whatever the case may be that people say. So it might be a situation that she's unfortunately been killed by a natural animal, yes, and we might never know that she's been killed by them, much like Karula. It could very well be possible, but she could also have distributed to an area where we're just not seeing her. You never know. So hopefully she will be around at some point to put a lot of these rumors to bed, because it gets pretty tiring every time we see a leopard going missing, that all of these conspiracy theories of zoos and hunting and us selling them and us killing them and not telling people comes up again and again and again. So, you know, it's hopefully that she will come out and just so that those people can realize that, you know, what they're saying and what they're spreading is just absolute nonsense, and that we can actually get past these kind of things and rather base our opinions on facts and sort of evidence rather than just trying to cause some sort of a drama about what goes on out here. Because I can tell you right now, if any of our leopards were sold to a zoo, I would be the first one that would be up in arms, and I would be the first one to complain if any of our leopards were hunted for any reason whatsoever. And so I can guarantee you that those things are not happening, and most certainly if they were, there would be a massive outcry from a number of lodges. These animals, at the end of the day, while they are wild animals, they have also here where people are seeing them, and they are providing a lot of people the chance to see them, which means that there's a lot of companies that are based around this which make a lot of money out of it, and that basically means that they are going to do everything they can to protect this area and to make sure that there is these animals to last for many years. They're not going to do things to basically detriment that factor and to cause an issue for themselves. So it's complete nonsense to think that we would do those kind of things. Right, but on to happier thoughts and on to better things now that I'm finished my, I suppose, rant, if you want to call it that. But it's just like I say, it's touches on a nerve string every now and then when I read some of the stuff that comes up, and hopefully we'll get to a point in some stage in life where we don't have to worry about those kind of things, and that people will actually kind of come up with their own opinions based on facts and things that they've seen. Regardless though, any leopard that we do find now is going to be a pretty one, and hopefully it will be a good sighting and we'll spend quite some time with her. It sounds like it's fairly quiet out here, so I would imagine a number of vehicles are going to head in this direction, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to spend most of our afternoon with this particular individual. There's also a nice thing is that there is lines in Torchwood, so hopefully that will also mean a lot of the guys go and track those lines and we are free to carry on with our leopard. Now I'm going to go into the Mulawati. I do apologize if there is a breakup in the reception and signal, and so while like that, it sounds like the Mara is up and running and my Leo Smith is out and ready to cut us off in the Mara. So let's go across to him and see what his plans are for the afternoon.
Well, there you can see that little green circle is where we are now, on the edge of this large low pressure system that just literally nearly blew our tents down. It was an absolutely massive storm, and it also unfortunately blew our internet antenna off the top of the mast, but fortunately we have Alexander Voz who managed to fix it as quickly as possible. Good afternoon and welcome to the studio. My name is Brent Leo Smith and I'm in James Henry's chair, but I've made it better. I've put a shuka in it, I know, and a kikoi. James is not partial to shukas, and I have Craig the Batman on camera with me today. So we had probably about 50 or 60 mils of rain, but that wasn't the scary part. It was the incredible winds that were rolling through our camp, and afterwards we actually went and had a walk, and you can't really see it from here, but there's this little river system that flows down in front of camp and actually supplies us with water, and there's another river system on the other side of camp, and when we came out after the wind had rocked through the camp, there was just this low roar of two waterfalls on either side of camp, making incredible noise. Actually, I went and had a walk and had a look at them, and it was really impressive. So Jamie and Tayla are on their way down. They've decided to brave the wet, and unfortunately, I'm going to warn you now, they're going to have to stay on the main roads. Due to the fact that if they went off those roads, they would definitely be the queens of the Marshmallow Club. Now, apparently there's been some lovely comments about my shuka. This is my oldest and most favourite of all my shukas. I have had this one for nearly 8 or 9 years, and it was given to me by my anti-poaching staff that I used to work with in Tanzania, so it's quite a special one. This is my, wait, let me just change this again. No, well, this is my black tie kikoi for when I feel like I'm feeling fancy. And since I'm in James's studio, I thought I'd better dress up and put my black tie kikoi on. Now, last time I was in the studio, I managed to put my boots on everything. Fortunately for James, who is long gone, back in South Africa now, I'm actually going to be barefoot this afternoon. I prefer being barefoot. I don't really like shoes too much. But as I was saying, we've got lots of fun stuff in the studio, and probably the most fun thing for me is the step ladder. Now, one will wonder, why is there a step ladder inside? See, well, the step ladder is for this particular shelf right here. So when James is here, he has to use the step ladder to get to the shelf. That's the only way he can get to the books. Of course, I'm joking. He uses the step ladder for this shelf. Now, of course, I don't have that problem. I can just reach up and take a book from the shelf without the step ladder, but the step ladder is there for James, and we do miss him. He is enjoying a good holiday, and he will be hopefully invigorated when he gets back. Now, let's quickly go across to the map, which is behind us. Now, as you can see, we've cleaned off all the pictures that James had put on the map, and we're going to start again. And you can see James's great artwork where he has painted the Mara River blue. He forgot a spot though, down there. No, I'm only kidding. There's a purpose. I'm not sure why. But so I'm just going to let you know what's happening in the Mara at the moment with the different, specifically the migration and the cheetah movements at the moment. Now, Musiara's two twin girls are still together, and they are staying in this area, which is not no man's land. It's actually the Paradise Plain around here. So from Governor's Camp right down to the main crossings, that is where those two female cheetah are. Now, I've just heard from Scott yesterday. I was having a chat with him. Let's find the Talek River. There we go. That he found Musiara, which is quite interesting, and she was just over here in between the Talek and the Ronkai. Now, Musiara was last seen mating with the two border boys right here on the Tanzanian border. So very, very interesting that she is now already back that side, and there's a very strong chance she's going to encounter those 5 boys, so there could be very interesting behavior there. Now, Amani, who's the mother of the 2 that are hanging around there, is still staying around Sala's camp, and I can't remember her name now, but we saw a very old female. I will find her name. Probably one of the oldest living females in the Mara at the moment that we saw on safari a while ago. She's over there. Now, of course, the 5 boys are all around the Ronkai. So this area here, balloon crossing area. The border boys, back on the triangle side, they should be coming back from their visit to Tanzania. Now, Kenya, I haven't seen yet, but Kenya's 2 daughters, I have seen a bit of. We found the one female with 4 cubs quite close to camp. We haven't seen her. I think she's moved into this area here where we do struggle for signal. Her other daughter had 4 cubs, is now down to 2. I actually saw her the other morning, but unfortunately, again, in a bad signal area around here. And apparently there's another female that was seen called Mlima in this area here somewhere, but I cannot verify that. The wildebeest, however, are literally littered. I went across yesterday and I was sitting on the northern side of the Talek River, and from the northern side of the Talek all the way down to Sala's. I'm not sure what's happening further to the east, but this area is still full of migration. Now, the big question that comes, is it the main migration or is it the loiter herd? For those who don't know what the loiter herd is, the loiter herd, let's go back to the computer there, Batman. I've got a map out. The loiter herd is the resident. I was looking at something else. I was looking at Lake Tanganyika. Apologies. Let us go back up here. So the loiter herd of wildebeest is a herd of wildebeest that stays in Kenya. So as we know, the main migration, actually better than the map. Let's go to that other map. I forgot we had 2 maps. Craig, you're going to fall on your bottom if you trip over your cable there. So what we're sitting at here is, this is the main migration. Now, I've heard lots of different things about how big the loiter herd. I heard it was 50,000. I've heard it's 100,000. I've heard it's 200,000. Now, after speaking to someone who was actually with them last year, they are between 200 and possibly up to 500,000 wildebeest. So that is the loiter herd. The loiter herd does not do this massive move all the way down and around and back into Kenya. The loiter herd stays in Kenya. It leaves the Maasai Mara, however, and it heads out of the park through that mountain range along the Tanzanian border to an area just around here called the Loiter Plains, and that is where they traditionally birth. However, last year, for the first time in history, they birthed on the Paradise Plain. So this area right here had 100,000 wildebeest in January and February, all birthing. Now, that could happen again this year. There's lots of different reasons for it happening. Most possibly, the main reason for it happening is actually one of the main reasons that most great migrations in the world have collapsed, and that is the advent of farming and fences. So it's going to be interesting to see whether the loiter herd is going to stay in the Mara and are going to give us our very own massive wildebeest birthing right here in Kenya, or are they going to try and move out of the Maasai Mara onto the Loiter Plains? Now, as I was saying, we've got lots of planned, but I think this was a good just intro. We can all sort of see out of the window. It's a bit shiny, but I'm trying to see if we can spot Tayla or Jamie making their way down the hill. We can't, and I can't even use the mountain cam because the rain got so much it has misted up the mountain cam. I think we're going to have to send Martin, our latest technician, on James's stepladder to go clean the camera. What do you guys think? And I forgot, if you have any questions for us about what's going on, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. But without further ado, let's go to my very good friend who's very good at finding leopards, Tristan.
Thank you, Brent Leo Smith. You're not too shabby yourself. It was always nice working with Brent. We always used to have fun trying to find leopards before each other. But this afternoon I seem to be struggling. Tandy has just vanished under everybody's noses in this horrible thick stuff that we're in at the moment. Now we're right on that little 2-track road that we took earlier to go check that pan, so I don't know where she's gone. To somehow slip in between everybody and move out, and we've lost her completely. So I don't know quite where she is now. Between Rex, myself and Tax, we can't find any sign of Tandy at the moment. So I'm sure she's here. It's just a matter of just driving around and we'll eventually get her again. It's just Rex said he got up the bank and he lost visual of her as he got up the bank, and now he can't find where she's gone. But she was heading slowly in an easterly direction. So Tayla in the Mara says that I must try harder for her. Well, Tayla, I'm trying, and so far no luck just yet. I don't know where this cat could have gone to. I don't see any tracks of any kind. I'm sure she's still somewhere in one of these thickets, but it is dense and it's difficult to see anything inside here. So I'm hoping that she's just going to pop out somewhere where I can see her. There was some Nyala and a Steenbok on the northern side of where we are, which means that I'm thinking she either is stalking that and is very low, and that's why we can't see her, or she's come southwards and that's why we've missed her. She's moved along the southern bank area, but I don't know. I can't see any sign of her, that's for sure. Now the reason why I've come up this way is because I wanted to check along the bank a little bit, but now I'm just getting myself into a big mess here and getting ourselves into a massive thicket. So I don't know. Tandy, why are you giving us a hard time? Come back. So apparently Rexon says it was Tandy that he saw. So hopefully she's here somewhere. Where are you, girl? Right, there's another Nyala there that's quiet, so she must still be somewhere on this side in one of these thickets. So now it's just a matter, like I say, of just doing some zigzags until we find her. And while we do that, I believe Jamie is also now reached the bottom of the hill and is ready and rearing to go. So let's jump across to her and see where she's heading this afternoon.
I'm sorry we're so late. The weather had other plans that did not involve being able to even escape from the kitchen. A very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Jahawi is on camera with me, and we're very excited. This is the first time he's been out with me, so hopefully we have a fantastic, well, muddy, let's be honest, muddy drive this afternoon. Let's stop quickly and look for the pregnant zebra. Let's have a look and see if we can get the one-eared pregnant zebra. Oh, I can hear somebody coming up behind me. That's Tayla, also on her way out. Hello. We're just doing our... oh no. Our antenna is falling down.
Maybe they should come to me one.
That is really unfortunate. We really need to fix that. Okay. All right. Yours is up, right? Yours is... Mine's gone through. That is highly unfortunate.
And it's cooking their brain.
Okay. Well, I don't want that. I really don't want that. So apparently we have a minor problem, relatively major problem with our antenna that will require a certain degree of fixing immediately before we damage something, which is going to happen relatively soon. Oh, I keep forgetting about the delay. We've got about 10-second delay between us and Djuma. So what we're going to do is send you across to the lovely Tayla, who's the one who pointed out our problem, and we will catch up with you soon.
Well, not too far away. I actually rolled the car forward slightly because I thought I don't want to boom over poor Jamie. It is very loud. I'm louder than the wind, louder than the zebras munching. But my name is Tayla, and on camera with me today is Sebastian. And hopefully we're going to do lots of slipping and sliding. Yes, I said hopefully because it's one of my favorite things to do. But we're restricted to the main roads today because everything has pretty much just turned into a wetland. Let's drive on. So we have a choice of two roads, and Jamie and I played rock, paper, scissors to decide on which roads who will be taking. So we didn't play rock, paper, scissors. That was a bit of a story. It just sounded a lot better. But anyways, basically Jamie has given me the privilege of driving the river road, and she's going to take the opposite road. So hopefully she gets the sausage tree pride or some lions on the way, and we'll see what else we can find. But for now, she needs to make sure that she gets that antenna up and working again. So we'll keep driving. I can't believe how much water is around. It honestly looks like the Mara River. Maybe we'll go to the Mara River. Let's do that. So we'll go towards cul-de-sac in those areas because it looks like it's overflowing at the moment. Could the Mara River be overflowing? Could it be spilling out from its edges? Maybe. But if you have perhaps just stumbled across this and you're wondering what on earth Safari Live is about, it's a live and interactive show. So you can actually ask me questions, or you can ask Brent questions, or Tristan, or Jamie when she's all back and ready for the show. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or talk to us via the YouTube chat. And now, look at the stream. We're going to do some amphibians today, I think. We're going to look for all the frogs. So I think River Road will probably be a good road. It's just a pity that I don't have a frog book of East Africa. That would have been, that would have gone down very well this afternoon. And Irma, it seems as though that's exactly what you were wanting to see, with some frogs. So Irma, just for you, I will try and find you some amphibians to have a look at, and hopefully we get lucky. It'll be nice. I can hear them. Oh, I saw one. Let's just hope Jamie's not driving behind me. In this mudwall over here, I thought I saw a head poking out. Yes, it was the stick. You see what I'm talking about? And that second mudwallow, there's a brown thing. Yes, you're right on it. What are you? Are you a frog? I have spotted a piece of grass and a stick and one. That's so wonderful. So Irma, here we go. It's a great start off to the frogging afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm such a failure at finding frogs. We'll find some more though. So I think, you know what, the best time to actually see them is at dusk, when they start becoming a bit more active. Obviously they're chirping now, they're being sneaky though, they're singing in the corners where we can't see them. But at night you can put the spotlight up on them and illuminate them quite nicely. We'll have infrared on too, and I think that we'll get some nice ones. But you might have to help me, so be prepared. Maybe if you can now start prepping. Let's get a list of the most common frogs that we can find. I do have one on my phone which we'll go through at some point. I just need to find it, and maybe we can get images, because it's one thing knowing all the names of the frogs, but some of the different species look so similar to one another, like the ridge frogs and the grass frogs. To me they look almost identical with the same sort of features. So it'll be nice to sort of have some sort of visual references. And like I said, I don't have a book, unfortunately, on East African frogs. But we can work together this afternoon. It'll be lots of fun, I think. But you know what? It seems as though Tristan's gone and done it again. He's stolen the show. He's found a spotted cat of sorts.
We have indeed. You can see why we drove round her a few times before we actually found her. There she is, tucked away in the thickets, and so it's definitely Tandy from what I can see. I mean, at the moment I can't see anything but a spot of a back, I mean, just from the camera itself, and that's what we were looking for. So you can see why a leopard is a tough animal to find. It blends in incredibly well. Now, I don't think she's going to be there all afternoon. I'm pretty sure she's going to get up and move around, and she's not going to be stationary the whole afternoon, but at least we've got her now, and that means that we should be able to follow her wherever she does head for the remainder of the afternoon. So I'm super excited that we managed to find her again, and it was thanks to Vildy's great eyes, because we drove past and we heard the birds alarming and we stopped here, and Vildy said just reverse a little bit for me, and he reversed back, and then he spotted her in this thicket. And like I say, it's not easy to see her at all. You can see how much vegetation there is between us and her, and to spot her is not the easiest thing. The good thing is, though, and the good news is that there is a number of prey animals all around us. There's Nyala, there's Steenboks, there's a duiker. So I would imagine that she is actually going to start hunting at some point. And we must have missed her by, I would say, minutes as she crossed over Twin Dams Road and down into the Mulawati. And I'm glad that we managed to get some reception. At least we're up on the bank on the eastern side now, which means that there is a little bit more height, and so we should have reception for the remainder of the afternoon, which is really, really good news. Deadhead Tom, you're saying she's looking oh so regal. She is, isn't she? I mean, besides the fact that there's about 40 bushes in between us and her, she is looking as regal as she can be, and she's probably wondering what all the fuss is and vehicles driving all over the place far away from her when she's right here. But she's definitely making this area her own, that's for sure. This is, I think, about the 6th or 7th sighting I've had of Tandy in this particular section of the Twin Dams sort of area, and so she seems as though she's really settling, and it's great news for us. The more time she spends here and the more she tries to get herself established in this area, the more likely it is for us to see her denning around this section. So I'm convinced that she's going to den in the Mulawati this year. I'm convinced that it's going to be somewhere on our side. I'm just hoping that it will be somewhere right in the center and we'll get to see little cubs at some point. Now, whether it's going to be this year or next year is debatable. The last time I saw her, she looked as though she had a small little tummy that could potentially indicate that she might be on the pregnant side, but we're going to have a look today for sure. We'll stay with her as much as we can, and hopefully she is going to move and come out of that thicket, and we'll be able to tell whether or not she's actually pregnant for sure, which is going to be good. From where I am now, just trying to see if there isn't another sort of place that we can potentially see her to give VM sort of more help than what we've got right now. It really is very difficult for him to kind of focus on what's going on. So what I think I might do is go in and just reverse in here. VM, is that going to be better, do you think? Or not? Well, we can try go forward, VM. Let's try and see. I'm going to try and just find a different gap for VM, because like I say, there's about 40 million trees in the way between where we are and where she is, and so I don't really want to try and kind of get into a situation where I don't think this is going to get any better, VM. There we go. Now, I just want to see what it looks like from this side. She really has put herself in the worst possible place for us. For a leopard, of course, this is the best possible place that she could be in. She really has gotten herself into a great spot where she can kind of rest. It's shady, it's perfect camouflage inside there. It's just for us as people, it's not quite ideal. But I think I've got a little gap here. I just want to try and see. I also don't want to drive too close to where she is. I can see where Rex is. Sorry, Vildi. I can see where she is now as well, which means hopefully if I can get in here, we're going to get a perfect view of her. There we go. How's that, Vim? That's much better. How's that? There we go. Now we're winning. So that's a much better place for us to be. We can at least now see her really nicely, and she is looking ever so pretty. She has got to be one of the prettier leopards that we've got out here. Well, in my opinion anyway. I like her face, and you can see she's wearing, sporting, is that a little scar on her nose at the moment? It looks like a little kind of scrape on there. It's a funny kind of shape that she's got. It's almost looks very similar to a burn of some sort, but maybe it's just a little bit of fur that's looking a bit funny. Maybe there's some water on there or something like that. Mrs. Zero, a pregnant leopard, as soon as she realizes pregnant, as soon as she'll be able to that there's that happens, she's going to start marking territory. And the other, I'm 900% convinced, Vildi and I were talking about this, that it was not a male calling, and if that is the case, it means that Tandy is calling, and that's probably to set up a territory to make sure that she now starts prepping for her denning when she is going to den. When they are pregnant, we'll start to see them scent marking a lot more than normal, vocalizing a lot, doing a lot of walking and a lot of traveling. And then she'll start to den last sort of pregnancy, which is the last sort of 30 days, 20 to 30 days. That's when she's going to be drainage sections. And
for that, it's just one of those things. Sometimes to bring you those incredible leopard sightings, we have to go beyond the boundaries of signal. And Tristan, of course, is, well, he's the leopard man of Djuma. He's had so many absolutely fantastic leopard sightings that I'm really feeling quite jealous, because I've seen about 3. Exaggeration. I've seen at least 5, maybe, no, about 10 leopards in the last 5 months. And it's one thing I really, really miss about being in the Sabi sand. The leopards are still here, it's just finding them is that much trickier. And often when we do find them, they're in places that are not fantastic for signal. But you never know, we might get lucky this afternoon, who knows? It's poured with rain, which means all of the territorial animals are going to be out and marking territories and all sorts of other things. I'm very impressed at Tayla's, well, first of all, speed, but also bravery. Let's go and find out how full the river is.
Well, Jamie, don't worry, we're not at the Mara River. No wonder you're wondering how on earth did I get there so quickly. We're just in this little sort of bridge that we go over where the hippo skull is, and the water is raging through here at the moment. This doesn't quite make it all the way to the Mara River, but it runs down from the escarpment, and it is pushing through underneath this bridge at a rapid rate. It almost looks like there's a riptide of sorts formed. Can you see how the river is heading off in a southerly direction, and then there's a little spot that turns back and comes around to the left. So it's basically just like a jacuzzi swirling around, a big brown jacuzzi, maybe a chocolate milk jacuzzi, but very cool. I just wanted to quickly show you. We're still going to head towards the Mara River, but we have fading light at the moment, so I reckon that we should race on over. Look at me rolling my R's like Brent. We all rub off on each other. Now I must tell you something very funny, and hopefully Brent is sitting in final control right now and he's got the volume turned up. The other day, and Jamie will back me, Brent and I played a game of darts. Now, Brent is close to one of the most competitive people I've ever met, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's pretty cool. I'm pretty competitive as well. And that's why I enjoyed our bird challenges so much in the Sabi sand. It was always fun. And our frog challenges. And I managed to beat Brent at darts by some miracle. I don't know how, but I'll take it. It was so great, and I understand why he has kept it quiet. But I suspect that a rematch is on the way, though. A rematch we shall have at some point. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun too. And just encouraging me to keep getting better and better at darts. So that's a game that we play around camp. It's a new game, so everybody wants to play it. Sometimes it's so difficult to get a chance at the dartboard. You've got to play before you go on safari, and you've got to light the board up using your headlights of a car. Well, that's what I do, you know, to get a bit of practice in. But we're on the river road now, and we're going to keep heading down along it, and hopefully we'll stop and see all sorts of wonderful things. We'll see what Hammerkop, what are we going to call that area, that lugger that's filled with water where we saw the Hammerkops this morning. Hammerkop pan, but nah, because there was a area where I used to work. I don't know, we'll find something hilarious to call it. And maybe we'll see some more of those crown bullfrogs or something else. But we'll keep on heading that way. We've got a bit of a way to go. Brent has managed to locate all sorts of wonderful creatures on the river cams, and this time it seems to be a crocodile.
I'm the crocodile. Oopsie. Let me put myself on mute. I was listening to what McCurdy was saying. Of course, I let her win at darts, just so I could beat her heavily the next time we played. So actually, no, well, we wanted to talk a bit about crocodiles. Of course, with the river cams, crocodiles have been a really big focus, and this is a beautiful specimen of a crocodile. Now, quite often you can, not exactly, but sometimes you can figure out how big a crocodile is by looking at its head. Now, I have noticed in the Mara we've got some really big fat crocodiles that this doesn't apply to, because you normally work in the length. And I actually worked with crocodiles quite a lot when I was quite young. And if we have a look here, so if we had to add all the meat and whatnot, you'd probably be sitting at about this, probably about 15 centimeters sticking out of the water. Now, this is by no means a scientific exact science. It is sort of a form of guessing. And that can generally, so 15 centimeters, you could probably say this guy was probably 4 to 5 meters long, probably closer to 4.5 meters, not as big as 5, but a really big specimen, probably weighing about 800 or 900 kilograms. Now, what I thought about is, because we see such massive, big, fat crocodiles in the Mara, we do a little bit of chat about big crocodiles in Africa in general. Now, as far as my understanding, the largest Nile crocodile ever to exist, and it cannot be confirmed because he is still alive and still causing absolute havoc in Burundi. His name is Gustav, and he lives in Lake Tanganyika, and he's said to be about 5.5 meters long. Now, the largest known for fact dead Nile crocodile was from the Congo, and I haven't found a picture of him a little bit earlier. Oh dear. Steph came in and did emails, and I hope he has. He's got all my tabs I had open, so I'll actually have to, I'll find it again shortly. Let me just do quickly. No, we'll do it just now. But Gustav, a lot of you might have heard of, National Geographic did a documentary on trying to catch the killer croc, and he's said to be operating and eating people in Lake Tanganyika and up a certain river system for the last 30 years, and he's said to be about 5.5 meters long. There are rumors of a 6-meter Nile crocodile from the Zambezi River, but I can't find any exact proof on that. But to give you an idea, I mean, the biggest crocodile I've seen in the Mara River is probably about 4.5 meters. So I'm going to use this as the end. I'm going to walk towards you, Craig. Actually, we need something. I know what I'll get. There we go. We'll get the sausage as the base. There we go. So you can see how long it is I'm talking. Actually, I might even go get a tape measure from the tech room to show you how long I'm talking. That might be a nice way to show rather than walking it out. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and a bit. That's probably about the biggest crocodile we have that I've seen in the Mara. Maybe let's say 4.5 meters. Now, the biggest crocodile I've ever seen in my life was a crocodile called Mampande, and he was named because he was caught. He was on a crocodile farm. He was caught in the Mampande Rapids on the Zambezi River. Now, the Mampande Rapids are north of Lake Victoria. I mean, Victoria Falls, not Lake Victoria. And we measured him, and he was missing the bottom third of his tail, and he was 5.1 meters without that bottom third of his tail, and that's the biggest crocodile. And he probably weighed about 1,200 kilograms. So crocs can get over a ton, but the biggest known crocodile, official, dead, measured, weighed, was from Point Noah, which is where the Congo River goes out into the sea, and he was actually taken down by security forces in a joint operation because in a very short time he ate about 7 or 8 people around a specific area where people were often in the water loading and unloading boats. And he didn't have a name. His name was just Point Noir, which is the city where he was in. He was actually right in the city. Now, crocodiles can be very, very old, and there's some very, very big crocodiles in captivity throughout the world. Most of them belong to the genus Cirrhosis, Crocodile cirrhosis, which is the Australian saltwater or the Indo-Pacific saltwater crocodile, and they do get bigger and heavier than Nile crocodiles. And there are rumors that there's one that lives in Papua New Guinea, and he's said to be close on 7 meters long. So, wow, 7 meters. I'm going to get a tape measure for the next segment and show you. And the biggest in captivity is just over 6 meters, and it's in the Philippines, and was caught actually right on the edge of a very big city, and was also a man-eater. Now, there were a lot of people who tried to get that crocodile re-released into the wild, but unfortunately the Filipino government and stuff, which sort of makes sense, that even if you release them in a remote area, there's still people living there, and he would still pose a threat to the people living along the edges of that river. And that was just over 6 meters, but he died, unfortunately, from pneumonia of all things, in captivity. He apparently wasn't kept in very good conditions. But our crocodiles here in the Mara are in wonderful condition, and especially at the moment after all the wildebeest and zebras swimming across. And Now, one of the strange things about crocodiles, and a lot of people don't realize it, and it's actually very similar with sharks. If you ever do get attacked by a crocodile, everyone says go for their eyes. Now, with a crocodile, it's quite difficult just where the eyes are placed. But the real trick is to go for the schnoz. So you go for the crocodile's nose. Now, I will try to get a picture of a crocodile again when I get onto the computer. So if you have a look carefully, if you have a look on a picture of a crocodile that's still got its skin on, there are lots of tiny little black dots all over, and those are actually sensory organs called ciliary glands, and they pick up vibrations in the water. And what happens is, if anything comes within 30 centimeters, which is not such a big deal for a big croc who's eating wildebeest, but it picks up the vibrations of catfish and whatnot, and as soon as it's within that range, it snaps closed. But I've been talking so much about crocodiles, I think it's about time we show you some of the crocodiles in the Mara, and we've got a little clip prepared so you can see some of the magnificent beasts that have been eating all the wildebeest and zebra.
On the banks and beneath the surface of the Mara River lurks a disreputable reptile. For nature's favorite villain, pickings have been slim for the last 9 months. But now, the wait is over. The migration has arrived. The loathsome dinosaurs of the deep slink beneath the muddy surface as the herds approach. Inexorably drawn to the greener pastures on the other side. The buffet table is set. The wait is over. The crossing begins. Wildebeest, zebra, and gazelle are grabbed by the world's most powerful bite. Africa's biggest crocodiles feast like this for weeks, until the next herd is drawn to the water's edge. These villains of the Mara will bask content in the sun.